Joining us now, NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins. Dr. Collins, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. It's so good to have you here.
Great to be with you, Dana. A good chance to talk about where we are with COVID.
Well, let's start with that. So it's been a pretty confusing week for Americans trying to understand just what is happening with COVID at this stage of the pandemic. We have the Delta variant. It's spreading across America. Could you give our viewers as clear an explanation as possible on what we should know and what we should be doing right now?
I will very much like to do that. And let me try to strip away all of the confusing information and try to hit the high points. And they kind of come in two categories, the bad news and the good news. So let me start with the bad news. Delta is spreading. We know it's extremely contagious. And certainly in some parts of the country, like Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, it is reaching very high levels. And we are now once again seeing case levels per day closing in on 100,000, which we haven't seen since February. So this is really a different virus than last year. And everything we learned about COVID a year ago, you got to sort of hit the reset button on now how we need to react to it. We also are learning, and this is not particularly good news, that vaccinated people, if they get infected, which is rare, but it does happen, they have pretty high viral loads, which means they could also be passing it on to other people. Even though they have a very low risk of getting seriously ill themselves, they can be a vector. That was the reason for CDC saying it's time in those places where the virus is spreading, which is about 75% of our counties, to put the masks back on when you're in indoor space, whether you're vaccinated or not. This is the best way to stop the transmission of this very contagious virus. So those are the bad things. The good things is...
Go ahead.
The good things. The vaccines work extremely well, including against Delta. If you're vaccinated right now, your chance of getting infected by this goes down by at least 3.5-fold. Your likelihood of having symptoms goes down by 8-fold. Your likelihood of getting really significantly ill in the hospital goes down by 25-fold. That's an extremely encouraging new set of data from the real world where we're tracking this. So vaccinations are still our best hope, and they are working beautifully. But, of course, we need to be sure more people take advantage of that. So the other part of the good news that I'm happy to see is I think we may, Dana, have seen a tipping point now where vaccinations are going up every week. 56% increase in vaccinations in the last couple of weeks, especially in those areas hardest hit. Goodness, Louisiana has tripled their rate of vaccinations in the last couple of weeks. That means people are finally sort of saying, okay, I've waited long enough, let's do this. And I would like everybody listening to this morning to think about that. Don't you want to be part of that tipping point? If you haven't yet gotten vaccinated, the evidence is now overwhelming. There's so many things that are not going to be easy for you to do if you're not vaccinated. Companies are starting to require this. Just let's get off the fence, move forward, and be part of the winning team that gets this Delta out of here.
I think the vaccinated people are somewhat frustrated that they want to get back and go about their lives without masks, and it's frustrating to them when they feel like, here we are, I've done the right thing, but now we're going to be possibly having to go back to this, including in our schools. And masks aren't a magic bullet, the vaccines aren't a magic bullet, but the vaccines are working very well, and I understand that there has been that uptick. Do you think it's necessary for children to have to be masked in schools as they start, in the next couple of weeks?
Well, if the goal here is to reduce transmission of this virus amongst children who are not completely immune from getting seriously ill or having them pass it on to others in their households, the masks are the best thing we've got right now to reduce that. I know people are frustrated, and I know people are frustrated, and it's gotten very political, and people are looking for someone to blame. Just put all that aside and look at the facts. If Delta is as contagious as we now know it is, and we want to try to put an end to what is a very significant uptick right now, wearing masks if you're under 12 and can't be vaccinated when you're in school is a really smart thing to do. And I know it's tiresome, and kids and their parents are sick of it, but let's think about, we're talking about life and death here. We've lost 620,000 Americans already. If we could save even a few of those by putting masks on ourselves and our kids, well, it seems like the right thing to do.
But at some point, don't we have to accept that there will be some risk?
Oh, there is risk in being alive right now, for sure, and risk in going around your business, which I think we are all determined to try to do, and avoid lockdowns, which is something we don't want to have to go back to. But if we're going to be able to continue, whether in business or in school, to do things that we all really value, putting the mask on is the best way to ensure that things don't get worse. So it seems like a sacrifice worth making.
All right. I also wanted to ask you about this. So this is about my mom, but I do think this is representative of a lot of people across America. So for the she's 74 years old. For the last 18 months, she's done all the right things. They've stayed home. She has on her bucket list a road trip to New England. She lives in Denver. She'd love to see the colors this fall, but she's concerned. I think that as she is fully vaccinated, this is a trip she should take and take the right precautions if she needs to in a crowded area. But what say you about people getting back to living their lives and learning to live with the virus?
I think she should definitely go. I think she should do all the careful things. Obviously, wear a mask during public transportation, because that's still a really smart thing and required in most places. And as you say, wear a mask indoors in crowded places. But actually, New England is doing a lot better than the rest of the country. So she's going to a place where the infection rates are quite a bit lower. I would still urge her to do all those cautious things. But yeah, go and enjoy the colors. This is not a reason to stay home at this point. We've made a lot of progress here compared to where we were a year ago. We just don't want to do silly things to cause the Delta virus to come back even stronger.
All right, Dr. Francis Collins, a pleasure to have you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Get vaccinated, people.